"We can't die here, Mama. I'm so cold." Her son's muffled cry echoed in the icy interior of the silo, a rusty metal coffin that shielded them from the white fury outside. Helena, her fingers numb, tried to light the last match, while the wind howled outside like a hungry wolf, lashing the structure with coin-sized snowflakes. Evicted, humiliated, and now, at the mercy of the mountain's cruelest winter, they clung to that unlikely dwelling, unaware that the true secret lay not in survival, but within the cold walls that sheltered them. And what she discovered would forever change her family's destiny. The match, trembling in Helena's frozen fingers, flared, casting a flickering flame against the damp darkness of the silo. 7-year-old Leo watched his mother, while Sophia, the 4-year-old youngest, snuggled closer, her face hidden in Helena's worn coat. The tiny warmth of the flame was a cruel reminder of the cold that enveloped them, an icy embrace that seemed to drain the life from their bones, making every movement a battle. "We can't die here, Mama. I'm so cold." Leo's voice, a mere thread of sound barely audible over the wind's howl, broke Helena's heart. She hugged him, pressing him close, while her other hand, with desperate precision, brought the match to a piece of dry cloth. Smoke rose, but the fire didn't catch. The dampness was relentless. Helena felt a lump in her throat, but forced a smile. "We won't, my love. Mama's here. We'll be all right." Her words were a mantra. The silo, a corroded metal cylinder, groaned and creaked with every gust, like a wounded monster atop the treacherous slope. It was a precarious dwelling, but it was all they had. Every crack was a doorway to the white hell outside, and Helena had spent hours sealing them with fabric and mud, feeling the skin on her fingers tear in the process. Their eviction from their home, the injustice of a heartless landowner, the pain of losing her husband, everything seemed to converge at that moment, transforming into the fury of the blizzard that surrounded them. But the sight of Leo and Sophia's pale faces, Sophia's short, gasping breaths, was what propelled her. She couldn't fail. She wouldn't fail. With a sigh, Helena put away the useless match. "Let's move around a bit, my loves. It'll get our blood warm." She rubbed Leo's hands, then Sophia's, with an energy she didn't feel but needed to display. Their small bodies were huddled, their cheeks red and lips purplish. She took out their only blanket, a heavy grandmother's shawl, and carefully wrapped it around Sophia, who coughed weakly. "Mama's hungry," Sophia said, her voice almost inaudible. Helena felt a pang of guilt. Supplies were low. There was only a piece of stale bread and some dried fruit, meticulously rationed. She divided the bread into 3 tiny pieces, giving one to each child and keeping hers, though she knew she wouldn't eat it. Leo's eyes filled with tears. "Is that all, Mama?" Helena hugged him again, feeling his tremor. "It's enough to give us strength, my angel. Tomorrow, if the storm calms, Mama will look for more." It was an uncertain promise. The silo, with its cold metal walls, seemed to shrink with every gust of wind, a reminder of their vulnerability. But even there, in that desolate place, there was a flame that refused to be extinguished, a mother's love, stronger than any blizzard, more resilient than rusty metal. Helena held her children close, closing her eyes, and promised herself she would protect them, no matter the cost. Their lives and dignity depended on it. Helena opened her eyes, the weight of her promise pressing on her chest. The darkness in the silo was almost complete, broken only by the pale light filtering through a high crack, revealing snowflakes dancing like ghosts in the icy air. Her children slept, exhausted, nestled into each other, their small faces still marked by fear and hunger. Leo, the elder, had chapped lips, and little Sophia coughed in her restless sleep. Helena felt a shiver that came not just from the cold, but from the overwhelming responsibility. How could she keep hope alive when the world outside seemed determined to crush them? Carefully, so as not to wake them, Helena disentangled herself from her children's embrace. Her muscles ached, every joint protesting against the cold and dampness. She crawled to the curved wall of the silo, feeling the icy metal. The structure, though precarious, was their only defense. The wind outside seemed to have gained strength, and the silo trembled more violently, like a ship at sea. A sharp sound, almost a lament, came from one of the metal joints, a spot she had hastily sealed the night before. Snow, driven by the storm's fury, was already beginning to accumulate in small mounds inside the silo, near the less secure cracks. Helena had to act. There was no time for despair. The landowner, with his cold cruelty, had taken everything from her, but he wouldn't take her will to fight. Her husband, a good and hard-working man, would have been proud of her resilience. With numb hands, she began to gather the few remaining pieces of cloth, scraps of old clothes, and a piece of canvas they had found along the way. Every fiber was precious. She slightly dampened them with melted snow that trickled through a small opening in the ceiling, pure but icy water, and kneaded them, shaping them to fill the groaning crack. The task was slow and painful. Her fingers, already red and swollen, could barely feel the fabric. But the image of Leo and Sophia, sleeping so vulnerably, was a fire that warmed her from within. She knelt, feeling the cold, packed earth floor beneath her knees, and began to push the cloths into the small openings, testing the metal's resistance with her fingertips. The smell of rusty metal and damp earth filled the air, mixed with the faint, sweet scent of mold. As she worked, Helena noticed something different. Near the base of the wall, where the metal met the rocky ground of the slope, there was a small protrusion, a kind of metal channel that seemed to have been added later. It wasn't a crack, but a part of the structure that had never caught her attention before. She slid her finger over the cold surface, feeling its rough, uneven texture. It looked ancient, older than the silo itself, almost fused to the rock. A thin stream of icy wind, stronger than the others, penetrated there, bringing with it a handful of fine snow. Helena frowned. That needed to be sealed too. It wasn't an obvious crack, but a subtle opening, a vulnerability that the relentless blizzard seemed to have found. She leaned in, trying to see better in the dark, and realized that the protrusion wasn't just a channel, but a kind of metal plate, strangely attached to the inner wall, almost like a small disguised door. Curiosity, a rare feeling in those days of pure survival, pricked her. Why would someone make such a well-camouflaged metal plate at the base of an abandoned silo? Was it just a peculiarity of the construction, or something more? She touched the plate again, feeling its edge. It was firmly attached, but there was a line, almost invisible, that suggested an opening. The thought of a secret compartment, of something beyond that cold metal, flashed through her mind, but she pushed it away. It was hunger and exhaustion playing tricks on her imagination. Her priority was the cold. With a sigh, Helena took another piece of cloth and began to push it into the newly discovered crack, covering the protrusion. The wind lessened a bit, but the cold persisted. She huddled, returning close to her children, feeling the faint warmth emanating from their small bodies. The promise to protect them echoed in her mind. The silo was a refuge, but also a prison. And at that moment, Helena felt that every inch of that rusty metal held not only the cold, but also secrets she didn't yet understand, secrets that might change the course of her desperate struggle. She closed her eyes again, exhaustion winning, but her mind already plotting the next task, the next crack to be sealed, the next hope to be kindled. Helena opened her eyes again, but the exhaustion hadn't lessened. Her mind, however, couldn't rest. The image of that metal plate, almost fused to the rock at the base of the silo, persisted in her thoughts. It wasn't just a crack. It was different. An intuition, a whisper of hope amidst the despair, urged her to investigate. Outside, the blizzard seemed to have reached its peak, a continuous roar that made the metal groan and vibrate, threatening their precarious safety. With a heavy sigh, Helena got up, feeling her muscles stiff and sore. Leo and Sophia still slept, their small faces pale and serene, oblivious to the storm unfolding. Seeing their fragility was the engine that propelled her. She needed to ensure that this refuge, however desolate, would protect them. And if there was a vulnerability there, she would find and seal it. She knelt again on the icy ground, her hands trembling slightly. The light filtering in was even scarcer now, and Helena had to feel along the curved wall of the silo until she found the protrusion. It was a thicker, rectangular piece of metal that fit perfectly at the junction of the wall and the ground, disguised by corrosion and accumulated dirt. She ran her fingers over the almost invisible line she had noticed before, feeling a small indentation, a notch that seemed made for gripping. With her already numb fingertips, Helena tried to force the plate, but it was firm. The metal was cold and unyielding. Frustration threatened to overwhelm her, but Leo's voice, asking for warmth, and Sophia's weak cough echoed in her mind. She couldn't give up. With renewed effort, she searched for something she could use as a lever. Her eyes scanned the ground, finding a twisted piece of wood that had once been part of a crate. With the piece of wood in hand, Helena wedged it into the small crack of the plate. She took a deep breath, gathering all the strength she had left. Her arms trembled, her teeth clenched as she applied pressure. A sharp, metallic and frightening creak echoed in the silo, making Sophia stir in her sleep and Leo grumble. Helena stopped, her heart pounding, looking at her children. They didn't wake. With more delicacy, but with the same determination, she tried again. This time, the creak was followed by a dry snap. The plate yielded a millimeter, then another. A current of icy air, stronger than any other crack, invaded the silo, bringing with it the smell of damp earth and something more, something old and musty. Helena felt a shiver that wasn't just from the cold. She continued, pushing the wood with all her might. Slowly, the plate opened, revealing an even deeper darkness. It wasn't a crack to the outside, but a hollow space, a secret compartment within the silo's own structure. Helena's heart pounded. Her hands, previously numb, now tingled with a mix of fear and an almost feverish curiosity. She leaned in, her breath short, trying to see what lay beyond that darkness that seemed to hold a mystery. The wind howled outside, but inside the silo, a silence charged with expectation hung in the air as Helena, wide-eyed, reached out into the unknown. Helena reached into the damp darkness, feeling the cold, stagnant air of the secret compartment. Her fingers brushed against something soft and dusty, then something solid and heavy. Cautiously, she pulled the object out. It was a small, dark wooden box, wrapped in a piece of thick, faded fabric that seemed to be made of leather. The wood was worn but solid, with rustic carvings that looked like drawings of mountains and tools, almost erased by time, suggesting the hand of an ancient miner. Helena's heart pounded erratically, a frantic drum in her chest. This was not a crack to be sealed. It was something more, something that pulled her into the unknown. With trembling hands, she removed the fabric, revealing the box in its entirety. There was no lock, just a lid that fit perfectly, curiosity overcoming fear and exhaustion. Helena forced the lid open with her fingertips. A faint creak of old wood echoed in the silence of the silo, a sound that seemed to carry centuries of stories. Slowly, the lid yielded, revealing the interior. Her eyes widened. In the faint glow filtering through the high crack, she saw a golden shimmer and deep colors, like stars on a moonless night. It wasn't earth nor common stones, they were jewels, ancient, yes, but of breathtaking beauty. A splendor that brutally contrasted with the surrounding misery. Gold coins, stacked in small leather rolls, gleamed with a silent, promising luster. There was also a necklace, Its stones, emeralds and rubies seemed to pulse with their own light, even in the dimness. A ring with a large sapphire rested beside it, and intricately worked gold bracelets completed the treasure, a forgotten legacy. Helena let out a muffled gasp, bringing a hand to her mouth to stifle a cry of disbelief. Warm tears welled in her eyes, streaming down cheeks stained with dirt and salted by recent despair. It wasn't a dream. It was real. The weight of the box in her hands was undeniable, the coolness of the gold and stones, palpable and redemptive. The silo, once a symbol of her misfortune, of her punishment, now revealed a secret that felt like a miracle, a divine intervention. She looked at Leo and Sophia, who were still sleeping soundly, oblivious to the turn of events that had just occurred. The image of their pale faces, the hunger and cold that tormented them, was replaced by an overwhelming wave of hope, a warmth that radiated from her chest. Those jewels, those coins, were not just wealth. They were the promise of a future, of security, of a new beginning. The promise of warm food, a safe home, restored dignity. The cruel landowner had tried to steal everything from her, but life, or perhaps destiny, had hidden a fortune in its most improbable, most despised place. The silo, which had seemed like a vertical tomb, was, in fact, a vault of hope. That treasure, likely left by some miner who dreamed of a better life, was now her own family's legacy, a poetic justice manifesting in the gleam of gold. Helena pressed the box against her chest, feeling the warmth of her tears and the coolness of the gold. The blizzard outside continued to howl, but its sound seemed distant, muffled by the magnitude of the discovery. She didn't know how, but she knew that from that moment on, everything would change. Overcoming wouldn't just be about surviving, but thriving. With a heart overflowing with gratitude and renewed strength, Helena promised herself she would use every penny to rebuild her children's lives, honoring her husband's memory and proving that true fortune could indeed be found in the most improbable and despised places. The night was still long, but the darkness of the silo had been illuminated by a golden glow of hope, a beacon for tomorrow. The gleam of the jewels seemed to warm the icy interior of the silo, not with physical heat, but with a flame of hope kindling in Helena's chest. She looked again at the treasure, the emeralds and rubies sparkling, the gold coins stacked, a silent testament to a past life. Now a legacy for hers. The wooden box, once a dusty, forgotten object, was now a portal to a future that had seemed impossible minutes ago. The tears, which had once been of despair, were now of such profound relief that they made her tremble. With extreme care, Helena closed the box, wrapping it again in the faded fabric. It wasn't safe to leave it open, nor exposed. The priority was safety, both of the treasure and of her children. She slid the box back into the secret compartment, gently pushing it until it was well hidden. The metal plate, now familiar, was closed with a soft, almost inaudible click, and Helena made sure it was as well camouflaged as before. The secret was safe for now, but Helena's mind was buzzing. How could she use this? The blizzard still trapped them, and hunger and cold were immediate threats. Gold wouldn't buy bread or warmth there at that moment. However, the mere existence of the treasure was a balm for her soul. That crushing burden of uncertainty, of not knowing if they would see the next dawn, had been replaced by a certainty they would have a chance, a real chance. She crawled back close to Leo and Sophia, nestling between them. The warmth of their small bodies was a comfort, and now an even stronger reminder of her promise. Helena kissed Leo's forehead, then Sophia's, feeling the youngest's low fever on her skin. Sophia's cough was still worrying. They needed medicine, nutritious food, a warm and safe place. That treasure was the key to all of it. As the blizzard roared outside, Helena began to plan. First, they needed to survive the storm. The silo, with its metal walls, was a shelter, but with every gust she felt the structure's vulnerability. She needed to reinforce the cracks, ensure that ice and snow wouldn't invade. Then, when the storm calmed, she would need to find a way out of those mountains. The most important thing would be discretion. No one could know about the treasure. The cruel landowner who had evicted her couldn't have the slightest idea that she had found something so valuable. Justice, she knew, would be slow, but it would come. Helena closed her eyes, imagining a future, a real home, with solid walls and a roof that wouldn't groan under the weight of snow. Warm clothes, abundant food. Leo and Sophia laughing, playing without constant fear in their eyes. Her husband's memory, so present in her grief, now took on a new meaning. He would have wanted the best for his children, and she would make it happen. The treasure wasn't just for them. It was to honor his memory, to prove that love and resilience could overcome cruelty and injustice. A small whimper from Sophia brought her back to the present. Helena hugged her tighter, feeling the warmth of her body. "It's all right, my love," she whispered, though Sophia was asleep. Helena's voice was choked, but now carried renewed strength. The darkness was still deep, the cold still biting, but hope, bright as the newly discovered gold, illuminated the way. The night would be long, yes, but no longer desperate. It was the night of the turning point, the night when punishment transformed into promise and misfortune into a silent miracle. Helena knew the journey would be arduous, but now she had the means to fight and the love to win. Helena held Sophia close, her heart still pounding in her chest, but now with a different rhythm, a rhythm of hope, not despair. The gleam of the gold, though invisible in the silo's darkness, seemed to permeate the air, warming her from within. She kissed Sophia's forehead again, feeling her skin warm, warmer than it should be. The girl's cough, previously a faint whimper, now seemed deeper, wetter, a sound that tore at Helena's soul. Leo, beside them, grumbled in his sleep, and Helena realized Sophia's fever was rising, her cheeks flushed in contrast to her general pallor. The treasure was a promise for the future, yes, the guarantee of a new beginning, but the present was cruel and immediate. They needed warmth, medicine, real food. Gold, by itself, wouldn't magically provide that. Not there, not now. Carefully, Helena disentangled herself from her children's embrace, feeling the weight of urgency press on her chest. The blizzard outside continued to howl, a relentless beast that seemed to mock her recent discovery, reminding her of the fragility of her existence. She crawled back to the secret compartment again, her mind buzzing with thoughts and strategies. She needed to think clearly as a miner would. A man who lived in the mountains, who knew the dangers and rewards, wouldn't just hide jewels, he would hide tools for survival, for finding a way through adversity. With trembling hands, Helena opened the metal plate, revealing the damp darkness of the niche. She pulled out the wooden box again, feeling its familiar weight in her hands, a weight that now seemed to carry not just wealth, but also purpose. This time, she didn't look for the gleam of the jewels, but for something more, something the ancient miner might have left for an emergency. She felt the bottom of the box, sensing the velvet lining the interior, protecting the precious items. Her fingers slid over a small protrusion, something that was neither a jewel nor a coin. Delicately, she pulled the object out. It was a small parchment scroll tied with a thin, dried leather string, almost imperceptible. Beside it, a small, dark glass vial with an amber liquid inside and a tiny, almost illegible note attached to the neck by another string. Helena's heart leaped. This was different, something totally unexpected. It wasn't material wealth, but knowledge, perhaps practical help. With the scant light filtering through the high cracks, she unrolled the parchment with utmost care. It was a rudimentary map, hand-drawn with firm strokes. indicating trails and landmarks in the mountains. There was an X marked near a symbol that looked like a frozen stream, and a small note beside it in old but clear enough handwriting to be understood. Emergency cabin, essential supplies. The cabin wasn't far, perhaps a few hours' walk, if the snow allowed and the trail was visible. Beside the map, the vial. Helena picked it up, feeling the coolness of the glass. The note with faded letters read, "For fever, 1 drop, Mountain Dew." Mountain Dew? Was it some kind of natural remedy, a powerful herb, a secret of those icy lands? The miner, a practical and provident man, had left a legacy that went beyond gold. He had left the key to immediate survival. Helena looked at Sophia, who was now coughing harder, her face flushed, her lips dry. The decision was instantaneous, driven by a love that surpassed any fear. She couldn't wait. The map, the medicine. They were the chance they needed. The treasure was for the future, but Sophia's life depended on that present, that moment. The blizzard still roared, but hope, now, had a path, a clear direction. She was no longer just surviving. She was fighting with the tools of a man who knew the mountain, who had foreseen the need for help. It was an immense risk to go out in the storm, but the risk of staying was even greater, unbearable. With fierce determination, Helena clutched the vial and the map to her chest. The journey would be dangerous, but her children's lives were worth every uncertain step, every icy breath of wind. Helena clutched the vial and the map to her chest, feeling the warmth of the decision she had just made. Sophia's life depended on that act of courage, that uncertain step out of the precarious safety of the silo. Her mother's heart, which had once tightened with fear, now filled with iron determination. She looked at Leo and Sophia, who slept, oblivious to the storm brewing within and around her. Sophia's face was redder now, her breathing labored. There was no time to lose. With careful movements so as not to wake them, Helena moved away from her children. Her eyes scanned the interior of the silo, searching for anything useful. She took the thickest piece of fabric they had, an old, worn blanket, and wrapped it firmly around Sophia, ensuring that Leo's warmth, as he slept nestled against her, was as constant as possible. Then she dragged one of the empty canvas bags used to store their few supplies and placed it over both of them as an extra layer of protection against the cold that stubbornly seeped through the cracks. She kissed each of their foreheads, a kiss of farewell and promise. "I'll be back, my loves, I promise," she whispered, her voice choked. She put on the heaviest coat she owned, a gift from her late husband, which now seemed too small for the task ahead. She tied a scarf around her head, covering as much of her face as possible, and put on her worn boots, which offered little protection against the biting cold. The map, carefully folded, was tucked into the inner pocket of her coat, along with the small vial of Mountain Dew. The box of jewels and coins remained hidden, a secret that would only be revealed when her children's lives were safe. With every movement, a pang of anxiety struck her. Leaving her children alone, even for a few hours, was torture. But the image of Sophia, pale and feverish, was a stronger incentive than any fear. She had to act. With a trembling hand, Helena pushed open the metal door of the silo. The blizzard's howl hit her with full force, an icy shock that made her recoil for an instant. Fine snow lashed her face, and the wind seemed to want to tear her from the ground. Visibility was almost nil, a furious white shroud that swallowed the mountains and the sky. But she couldn't hesitate. She took a deep breath, feeling the icy air burn her lungs. "For you," she thought, and took the first step out of the silo, sinking into the soft, deep snow. Every step was a struggle, her leg muscles protesting against the effort. The wind pushed her, trying to divert her path, but Helena clung to the image of the map in her mind, to the landmarks the miner had drawn. She remembered the instructions. Follow the frozen stream to the fork, then climb the steeper slope to the right. The stream was covered by snow, but Helena could feel the depression in the terrain, the slight incline that indicated its course. She guided herself more by touch and memory than by sight. Her fingers, even with thin gloves, began to ache from the cold, but she rubbed them and kept going. Every few meters she stopped, turned towards the silo, which was now just an indistinct silhouette in the blizzard, and whispered words of encouragement to her children, as if they could hear her through the storm. "Hold on tight, my little ones. Mama's going to get help." Tears mingled with the snow on her face, but they were tears of determination, not despair. Suddenly, a different sound broke through the wind's howl, a loud crack followed by a deep groan from the earth. Helena stopped abruptly, her heart pounding. She looked around, but the blizzard allowed her to see nothing beyond a few meters. The sound seemed to come from above, from the steep slope she was supposed to start climbing. Was it a landslide? A rock breaking loose? Fear chilled her veins, but she couldn't go back. Sophia needed her. With bated breath, Helena clutched the map in her pocket and continued, her eyes fixed on the snow-covered ground, searching for any sign, any clue to guide her. The mountain, which had once seemed a refuge, now revealed itself as a trap, a challenge that tested not only her physical strength, but also the resilience of her soul. She was just a mother, but at that moment, she was a warrior, fighting against nature's fury for those she loved more than life itself. The path was uncertain, but hope, like a burning ember in her heart, propelled her forward, one step at a time, towards the unknown. Helena froze in place, the sound of the crack and the deep groan from the earth echoing in her ears, mingled with the incessant howl of the blizzard. Her heart pounded, a frantic drum in her chest, and an icy shiver ran up her spine, more intense than the external cold. What had that been? A rockfall? A crevice opening in the mountain, swallowing the path? Visibility was so precarious that she couldn't distinguish anything beyond the furious white veil of the storm, which seemed to want to devour her. Instinct screamed at her to go back, to take shelter in the precarious safety of the silo. But the image of Sophia, her face flushed with fever and the cough tearing at her chest, was a fire that burned stronger than any fear, propelling her forward. "I can't go back," she thought, her inner voice firm, despite the uncontrollable trembling in her hands. With bated breath, Helena took another step, sinking knee-deep into the snow. The sound didn't repeat, but the feeling that the mountain was alive, pulsating with unpredictable and dangerous force, accompanied her every move. She pulled the map from her pocket, trying to decipher the miner's rudimentary strokes under the scant light, but the strong wind almost tore it from her hands. She put it away again, relying on memory and intuition. Follow the frozen stream to the fork, then climb the steeper slope to the right, she recited mentally. The stream, though invisible beneath a thick layer of snow, was her only compass, her only hope of direction. She leaned down, feeling the ground with her foot, searching for the depression in the terrain that indicated the watercourse beneath the ice. Every step was an exhausting battle. The wind seemed like an invisible enemy, pushing her, trying to divert her path, blinding her with snow. The fine, biting snow lashed her face, and her eyelashes began to freeze, weighing down her eyelids. Her fingers, even inside her worn gloves, were numb, but she rubbed them with the force of desperation and urgency, refusing to yield to the paralyzing cold that threatened to steal her sensation. Helena's mind was torn between Sophia's urgency and the need for caution. One false step could be fatal, an unforgivable error. She imagined Leo and Sophia nestled into each other, perhaps dreaming of a warm home and abundant food. This image was her engine, the silent promise that propelled her to continue, not to give up. Suddenly, the ground beneath her feet seemed to give way slightly. Helena stumbled, her heart leaping in her chest. Was it the stream's fork, or something more dangerous, a trap hidden by the snow? She knelt in the snow, feeling with her gloved hands. She felt a change in the incline, a deeper crevice, and realized she had reached a point of divergence in the terrain. The map indicated she should climb the steeper slope to the right. But which was right in that indistinct white shroud where everything looked the same? The blizzard had erased all visual references, turning the mountain into a labyrinth. A lament escaped her lips, a hoarse, almost inaudible sound, lost in the deafening roar of the wind. It was the first time she had allowed despair to touch her so deeply since leaving the silo. She lifted her face to the sky, feeling the snow melt into her warm tears, which streamed down her icy cheeks. "Please," she whispered, "give me a sign, a direction." She closed her eyes for an instant, searching for an inner strength that seemed to drain with every gust of wind. When she opened them, her eyes fell upon a small, dark protrusion, almost buried by snow, which appeared to be a twisted bush struggling to survive. It wasn't a landmark from the map, but it was something. A small ember of hope ignited in her chest. She crawled to the bush, using it for support to stand, her muscles trembling with effort. She looked left, then right, trying to discern any difference in the terrain's incline beneath the snow. The slope to the right seemed slightly higher, rockier, even under the thick layer of snow. Could this be the steep slope the miner had marked on his old map? The risk was immense. If she erred, she could get even more lost, or worse, fall into some hidden crevice with no chance of return. But standing still, waiting for Sophia's fever to worsen, was not an option. Sophia needed her, and she wouldn't fail. With a new wave of determination, Helena began to climb, each hand and foot seeking purchase on the unstable snow and hidden rocks. The ascent was exhausting, her muscles burning, the thin mountain air making breathing difficult, her breath coming out in white puffs. Every few feet, she turned back, trying to see the silo, but it had completely vanished in the white fury, swallowed by the storm. She was alone, facing the mountain, guided only by faith and her unwavering love for her children. The vial of mountain dew in her pocket seemed to pulse with a silent promise, a reminder of what awaited her at the top of that slope. She would not fail, no matter the cost. Helena continued to climb. The snow was deep and treacherous, sometimes reaching her waist, sapping her strength with every step. Her breath came in ragged gasps, each exhalation a white cloud in the biting air. Her muscles screamed in protest, but she pushed through the pain, imagining Sophia's flushed face, Leo's innocent sleep. The wind howled like a banshee, tearing at her clothes, trying to dislodge her from the precarious slope. She stumbled, her foot slipping on a hidden patch of ice, and for a terrifying moment she felt herself slide backward. Her heart leaped into her throat, an icy dread overcoming her. With a desperate cry, she dug her gloved fingers into the snow, finding purchase on a twisted root exposed by the wind. She clung to it, gasping, her body trembling uncontrollably. The fear was immense, a visceral wave that threatened to engulf her, but she refused to yield. "No, not now," she murmured, her voice hoarse, almost inaudible. "My children need me." Slowly, with great effort, she pulled herself up, her hands raw even through her worn gloves. The climb resumed, a strenuous ascent against the relentless mountain. The bush that had guided her before had vanished, swallowed by the blizzard. Now, she guided herself by the incline, by the feeling that she was climbing, always climbing. Her eyes, already tired and irritated by the snow, tried to discern any shape. any shadow that might indicate the cabin's presence. Hope, though fragile, was the only thing that kept her from collapsing right there, exhausted and strengthless. She thought of the miner, the provident man who had left the map and the medicine. He knew the mountain, knew its secrets and its dangers. He would have made this same journey perhaps many times to take shelter. This silent connection with a stranger from the past was an unexpected comfort, proof that she was not completely alone in that white immensity. After what seemed like endless hours, her body on the verge of collapse and her mind fighting against exhaustion, Helena felt a change in the wind. It wasn't as strong there, it seemed to be diverted by something. She lifted her head, her eyes squinting, and through the veil of snow, a dark shape began to materialize. It was a rustic structure, almost invisible, camouflaged by snow and time. Helena's heart leaped. The cabin! It was small, made of rough logs, with a low, snow-covered roof, almost fused to the slope. A glimmer of hope, a beacon in the darkness. With the last of her remaining strength, she stumbled towards the cabin, the deep snow making every final step difficult. As she approached, she realized the door was a simple wooden plank covered by a layer of ice and snow. With numb hands, she tried to push it open, but it was stuck. Despair threatened to return, but Helena took a deep breath, remembering Sophia's urgency. She used her shoulder, then her whole body, pushing with all her might, until the old wood groaned and yielded with a dry snap. A gust of icy, dusty air greeted her. The interior was dark, cold, and exuded the smell of old wood and damp earth. There were no windows, just a small opening at the top, covered by a board. But it was a shelter. It was a roof over her head and walls that protected her from the furious wind. Helena entered, closing the door with difficulty behind her. The darkness was almost total, but her eyes began to adjust. In the center of the cabin, there was a rustic stone fireplace with cold ashes. Beside it, a pile of dry firewood covered by an old cloth. And in a corner, an improvised shelf with some clay pots and a canvas bag. The miner had left more than just the map. He had left supplies. With trembling hands, Helena lit a small fire in the fireplace, using a rusty lighter she found in one of the pots. The flickering flame danced, casting shimmering shadows on the walls, and a faint warmth began to spread. A welcome relief for her frozen limbs. She took the small vial of Mountain Dew from her pocket. In the faint firelight, she read the note again. For fever, 1 drop. The amber liquid seemed to glow in the light. It was a miracle, a gift. She needed to return to Sophia, and quickly. But first, she needed to warm up a bit, regain her strength, and perhaps find something else that could help. In the canvas bag, she found some dried potatoes, a piece of salted meat, and a small canteen with water. It was little, but it was enough to give her some energy. Helena ate quickly, feeling the food warm her stomach. The cabin, once an unknown and frightening place, now seemed like a sanctuary, a refuge of hope. She would not fail. She would return to her children with the promise of healing and a future. Helena felt the fire's warmth embrace her body, dispelling the biting cold. The simple food brought a wave of energy she hadn't felt in a long time. Her eyes scanned the illuminated cabin, and a faint smile touched her chapped lips. The miner, an unknown man, had become a guardian angel, a beacon of hope. His foresight and altruism echoed through time, deeply touching the lives of Helena and her children. She took the vial of Mountain Dew again, observing the amber liquid with reverence. 1 drop, the note said. A single drop to combat Sophia's fever. The responsibility weighed on her shoulders, but hope was lighter, more powerful. Carefully, she put it back in the inner pocket of her coat, feeling the small volume against her chest like a talisman of healing. The fire was lit, warmth accumulating. She needed to prepare for the journey back, as dangerous as the one there. Her eyes fell upon the improvised shelf. Curious, she reached for one of the clay pots. Inside, she found dried herbs. Beside it, a small leather notebook with yellowed pages, a new secret to be unveiled. Helena opened the notebook delicately. The first pages spoke of mining, but further on, there were recipes for teas and ointments with descriptions of mountain plants and their uses. The miner was a healer, a deep connoisseur of nature. A new admiration washed over her. He had foreseen not only cold and hunger, but also illness. She leafed through the pages, looking for something that could complement the mountain dew or offer additional comfort to Sophia. She found a recipe for a soothing tea with ice flower to relieve the cough. The plant's description was clear. Helena had seen similar bushes near the silo. It was a sign, a new tool in her fight for survival. With renewed determination, Helena began to organize the supplies. She wrapped the dried potatoes and salted meat in a clean cloth. She filled the canteen with fresh water from the barrel. She thought about taking firewood, but the weight would be insurmountable. The most important thing was the medicine and the promise of a warm tea. She knelt near the fireplace. She closed her eyes for an instant, sending a thought of gratitude to the unknown miner. "Thank you," she whispered, her voice choked, "for every piece of your wisdom, for every gesture of kindness." The cabin, once a refuge of despair, was now a sanctuary of hope, a testament to human connection that transcended time and adversity. Helena stood up, her body warmed, her mind clear. The blizzard still roared, but the fear had diminished, replaced by fierce courage. She had a plan, the means to help Sophia, and the strength of an unwavering love. She opened the cabin door, the icy wind greeting her. This time she was ready for the return. The map in her mind, the vial in her pocket, and her children in her heart propelled her back to the silo. Every step would be a challenge, but she was no longer alone. The miner's spirit accompanied her. Helena opened the cabin door, the icy wind greeting her with the same fury as before, but this time she was ready. The fear had diminished, replaced by a fierce courage, fueled by the image of her children and the promise of healing in her pocket. The map in her mind, the vial against her chest, and her children in her heart propelled her. Every step would be a challenge, but she was no longer alone. The miner's spirit accompanied her. The descent was almost as treacherous as the ascent. The snow, which had once seemed an obstacle, now became an ally, allowing her to slide carefully down some less steep slopes, saving a little energy. However, the wind seemed to have redoubled its strength, pushing her violently, and visibility was even worse. Helena had to crouch several times, hugging her knees, waiting for the strongest gusts to pass, feeling her whole body tremble. Her lips were chapped, her hands numb, but she refused to stop. She remembered the stream's fork. This time, instead of looking for a bush, she focused on the terrain's incline that would lead her back to the frozen bed. With every step, she visualized Sophia, feeling the warmth of the mountain dew vial against her skin. That small container was hope materialized, proof that kindness existed even in the most remote and hostile corners of the world. After what seemed like an eternity, her feet felt the familiar depression of the stream. She followed it, her heart quickening with the proximity of the silo. The blizzard, however, seemed unwilling to relent. Time was running out. Helena began to run, or as close to running as the deep snow allowed, her lungs burning, each gasp a silent prayer. Suddenly, a dark shadow materialized ahead, almost swallowed by the furious white. The silo. An overwhelming relief washed over her, mixed with an icy dread. How would her children be? She stumbled the last few meters, her legs heavy as lead, and threw herself against the metal door. She pushed it with the force of desperation, and it creaked open to the dark, silent interior. The first thing Helena noticed was the intense cold inside the silo. The warmth Leo and Sophia generated wasn't enough to combat the penetrating wind. Her eyes adjusted to the gloom, and she saw them, nestled under the worn blanket and canvas bag. Leo was pale, but slept soundly. Sophia, however, was different. Her face was even redder, her breathing noisy and shallow, and her body trembled with spasms. Helena rushed to them, kneeling in the melted snow that had accumulated on the floor. She touched Sophia's forehead, and the heat radiating from it was alarming. The fever had worsened drastically. Warm tears streamed down her face, but there was no time for despair. She had to act. With trembling hands, Helena untied the scarf from her head and moistened it with a little water from the canteen she had brought from the cabin. She gently wiped Sophia's face and neck with it, trying to alleviate the heat. Then, with a heavy heart, she took the small vial of Mountain Dew from her pocket. Her fingers could barely hold it, but urgency propelled her. Leo, sensing the movement, slowly opened his eyes. His blurry vision met his mother's worried face. "Mama," he whispered, his voice weak. Helena merely gave him a quick glance, a silent plea for understanding. With extreme care, she opened the vial. A single drop. The responsibility was immense. She brought the vial to Sophia's parched lips, which barely moved. With trembling hands, she let a drop of the amber liquid fall into her daughter's mouth. Sophia swallowed with difficulty, and Helena waited, her breath held, her heart pounding erratically. Seconds stretched into hours. Helena watched Sophia's every movement, every breath. Leo, now more awake, looked at his sister with wide eyes, sensing the tension in the air. The silence in the silo was broken only by the distant howl of the blizzard and Sophia's labored breathing. Then, something began to change. The trembling in Sophia's body lessened. Her breathing, though still noisy, seemed a little less strained. Helena touched her daughter's forehead again. The heat was still there, but it seemed to have lessened just a little. A small, but significant improvement. An ember of hope ignited in her chest, stronger than ever. The medicine was working. The miner, even in his absence, had saved her daughter. Helena tenderly embraced Sophia, tears of relief streaming freely. The climax of her journey, the moment of greatest anguish and hope, had arrived. Helena tenderly embraced Sophia, tears of relief streaming freely. The climax of her journey, the moment of greatest anguish and hope, had arrived. Sophia's body, previously convulsed by cold and fever, began to relax in her mother's arms. Her breathing, though still a little heavy, lost that sharp, wheezing sound that had frightened her so much. Leo, seeing the change in his sister's face, squeezed Helena's hand with a look of pure gratitude, his childlike eyes reflecting the hope that once again shone in the silo. Carefully, Helena laid Sophia down again, covering her with the blanket and canvas bag. The fever hadn't completely disappeared, but its intensity had lessened. The improvement was visible, a balm for Helena's exhausted soul. She remembered the miner's notebook and the recipe for ice flower tea for the cough. She needed to go get the herbs, but first she needed warmth. With hands still slightly trembling, but now moved by renewed purpose, she lit a small fire with the few twigs she had saved. The flickering flame brought a timid warmth, but enough to push back some of the biting cold from the silo. As the fire crackled, Helena watched Sophia, who now slept a more peaceful sleep. Leo, nestled beside his sister, had also fallen asleep, exhausted by the tension. Helena felt an overwhelming love for her children, a force that had propelled her through the blizzard and despair. The miner, with his wisdom and generosity, had been a divine instrument. He had not only saved Sophia, but also kindled a new flame of hope in her heart. There was still the treasure, the jewels and gold coins hidden in the silo's foundations. That wealth, once a frightening discovery amidst her misery, now presented itself as the key to liberation. It wasn't just Sophia's healing, but the promise of a dignified future, far from cold, hunger, and humiliation. Helena touched the secret compartment, feeling the cold metal beneath her fingers. The silo, which had been her refuge and her prison, would now be her starting point. The blizzard outside continued to howl, but inside the silo, the atmosphere had changed. Despair had been replaced by determination. Helena knew the journey wasn't over yet. She needed to wait for the storm to subside, care for Sophia, and then plan their departure. It wouldn't be easy. The mountain still held its dangers, and the world outside, its injustices. But she had the treasure, the miner's wisdom, and above all, the strength of her unwavering love for Leo and Sophia. She stood up, adjusting her worn clothes. She looked at her children, asleep in the gloom. A soft smile appeared on her lips. They would have a real home, a safe and warm place. They would have education, abundant food, and the chance to live without constant fear. The injustice that had driven her from her home would be rectified, not by vengeance, but by building a better future. The treasure wasn't just gold and jewels. It was recovered dignity, poetic justice manifesting itself. Helena sat by the fire, feeling the warmth on her face. She closed her eyes, imagining a new beginning. The image of the miner's cabin, a sanctuary of kindness, mingled with the vision of a new home. Human connection, the altruism of a stranger, had transformed her ordeal into a journey of overcoming. She would open the notebook again, study the herbs, and when the blizzard gave way, she would go look for the ice flower. Sophia needed all the care. The resolution was not just an end, but a new and promising beginning. The cold outside was relentless, but the warmth in her heart was stronger. The cold outside was relentless, but the warmth in her heart was stronger. Helena opened her eyes, feeling the slight weight of Leo nestled on her shoulder, while Sophia slept peacefully beside her. The girl's fever had considerably lessened during the night, thanks to the miraculous drop of medicine. Now, Helena needed the ice flower tea to alleviate Sophia's persistent cough and strengthen her fragile body. Carefully, so as not to wake her children, Helena got up, her muscles still sore, but her mind clear and focused. The blizzard outside seemed to have lost some of its fury. The wind's howl was less shrill, and the faint light filtering through the silo's cracks indicated that the storm was finally beginning to subside. It was the awaited moment. Helena picked up the miner's notebook, feeling the aged leather in her hands. She leafed through the pages until she found the description of the ice flower. The plant was resilient, with small white flowers that bloomed even amidst the ice, a symbol of hope and resilience. She remembered having seen similar bushes not far from the silo before the most intense and dangerous blizzard. As the fire crackled, Helena prepared a small bag with the dried potatoes and some of the salted meat the miner had left. She couldn't delay. Her children needed her, and every minute counted. She kissed Leo's forehead, who grumbled softly, and then Sophia's, feeling her temperature almost normal. A smile of relief spread across her face. With the bag on her back and determination in her eyes, Helena opened the silo door. The wind was still biting, but the snow no longer fell with the same intensity. The sky, once a grey and oppressive shroud, began to clear in places, revealing a pale and promising blue. The mountain, once a relentless enemy, now seemed to offer a truce. She followed the tracks the blizzard itself had left, searching for the bushes the notebook described. With every step, she felt a connection to the miner, a man who, even without knowing her, had reached out across time. It was a reminder that human kindness could flourish in the most inhospitable places. It wasn't long before she spotted the small white flowers, almost hidden beneath a thin layer of ice, exactly as the miner had described. With agile hands, Helena gathered the flowers and some leaves, feeling their rough, cold texture. A feeling of profound gratitude washed over her. Nature, with its ancestral wisdom, offered healing. Upon returning to the silo, the sun was already peeking through the clouds, casting golden rays over the white landscape. Leo and Sophia were awake, their eyes wide as they saw their mother enter, flowers in hand. "Mama, you're back!" Leo exclaimed, a faint smile illuminating his pale face. Helena knelt, hugging them tightly. "Yes, my loves, Mama always comes back." She prepared the tea, boiling water in the small canteen over the fire. The gentle aroma of the herbs spread through the silo, bringing a sense of peace and warmth. Sophia drank the tea in small sips, and Helena watched, her heart full of hope, as her daughter's cough subsided, and a healthy flush began to color her cheeks. In the days that followed, the blizzard finally relented. The sun shone brightly, melting the snow and revealing the mountain in its majesty. Sophia recovered completely, and Leo, with renewed enthusiasm, helped his mother organize the silo. Helena, with the miner's treasure, managed not only to leave the mountain, but also to build a new home. It wasn't a mansion, but a simple, welcoming house in a fertile valley where the sun shone and ice flowers could be found in abundance. She used part of the wealth to buy land, seeds, and animals, and the rest to ensure her children's education. The story of the miner and his altruism became a legend in the new community, a testament that true wealth lay not just in gold, but in generosity and human connection. Helena, now a strong and respected woman, never forgot the silo, nor the mountain that had challenged her, and, paradoxically, had gifted her with a future. She taught her children the value of hard work, gratitude, and above all, compassion. The silo, once a vertical tomb, had transformed into a portal to a life of dignity and hope, proving that, even in the most improbable places, poetic justice could flourish, and love would always find a way. The gentle valley breeze, laden with the scent of wildflowers, was a true balm for Helena. Sitting on the porch of her new home, she watched Leo and Sophia play in the verdant field, their laughter echoing like a melody. The warm sun kissed her skin, and the warmth she felt now came from within, from a peace earned through sacrifice and love. A year had passed since they left the silo, and the transformation in their lives was a testament to human resilience. The house, though modest, was a sanctuary. Built with sturdy wood and river stones, it had wide windows that invited light and fresh air. Helena had designed every detail, thinking of her children's comfort and safety. Leo, now 7, was a vibrant boy, his health restored, and an insatiable curiosity about the world. Sophia, at 5, radiated joy, her eyes shining with the vitality that fever had almost stolen. They ran barefoot through the grass, free from the shackles of fear and hunger. The miner's treasure had been the key, but the true fortune, Helena knew, was the wisdom he had left behind. She didn't spend the gold and jewels thoughtlessly. With the help of some honest valley residents, she invested in fertile land where she grew vegetables and fruits. She bought some goats and chickens, ensuring fresh and nutritious food. Part of the money was allocated to building a small community school, where she herself, with the help of an old retired teacher, taught the children of the valley. Her generosity and altruism earned the respect and admiration of everyone. Helena never hid the story of the silo and the miner. On the contrary, she shared it, transforming it into a legend of hope and connection. The jewels, now kept in a secure safe, were a constant reminder that kindness could emerge in the most improbable places. She wore a small gold chain, one of the simpler pieces of the treasure, as an amulet, a link to the past and to the man who, even without knowing her, had changed her destiny. Every morning, seeing her children wake in their warm beds, Helena felt profound gratitude. The landowner's injustice had been a catalyst, pushing her on a journey that would reveal her own strength and the inherent goodness in the world. She had found her voice, her dignity, and a purpose greater than just surviving. The house in the valley was not just a home. It was a beacon of hope, a place where love flourished and the miner's memory was honored. Sophia, with a bouquet of daisies in her hands, ran to Helena, nestling into her lap. "Mama, look, these are for you." Helena hugged her daughter tightly, feeling the sweet scent of the flowers and the warmth of the small, beloved body. Leo joined them, resting his head on his mother's shoulder. In that moment, with her children safe and happy, Helena knew she had found true wealth. It wasn't the gold, but unwavering love, a united family, and the certainty that, even after the darkest blizzards, the sun would always shine again, bringing with it the promise of a new and blessed dawn. Poetic justice had been served, and life, in its fullness, was the greatest treasure.